Hello Derek, really enjoyed your presentation in the main session then, defining the end game. If we were to roll forward 4, 5, maybe even 10 years, what do you think the end game's going to look like?
I think the positive scenario would be that governments start looking at the data as opposed to focusing on ideological concerns, and started making the regulatory framework aid the move towards reduced harm. And that would mean continuing to tighten current traditional tobacco legislation while making sure that you are sending a clear signal about the benefits of reduced harm by not over-taxing or even taxing these new products, by sending a clear signal to the medical profession and physicians about the need to provide advice to smokers about using them, all the time starting to improve the quality of the actually underlying product. That would be a positive scenario. And if that happened, I think we must look to the speed of change that we saw when, for the first time, filter-tip cigarettes were introduced in the 50s. Yep. Within a decade, they swept the world and became the new norm. And the reason was because the perception of a smoker was this would confer benefit. Yeah. We know in time that actually didn't do it. But now, this time round, we've actually got a product that could potentially both excite consumers because it's got a technology-ish kind of feel. It looks very different from the past, and it confers health. If we got the endorsement of the right health people, I could see the pace happening as fast or maybe even faster than we saw on the filter experience. That's the positive scenario. Yeah. Of course, the very grim worst scenario would be that government continues down the road of saying we need to regulate these things for one of two reasons. Doubt about whether they are effective or they may be negative, where the doubt is not calculated on any relative risk factor. And secondly, because of the fear that this must be a giant trick by the tobacco companies, because they've given us giant tricks in the past. If for whatever reason they continue down this path, I could see the speed of innovation slowing dramatically. It won't end, because it's inevitable that we're going to continue seeing these products expand, but it'll happen at a much slower rate. And the consequences will be only a marginal drop in the death rates a decade or two from now, as opposed to what we could see, which is a much sharper decline.
What would you think that people with an interest in seeing the positive outcome, what do you think people involved in this field can do to work towards promoting that positive outcome?
Well, I think there are a few things, and we've seen some of it in this meeting. So I think getting the kind of data that the UK colleagues have started presenting, which systematically debunks concerns about gateway theory, about the probability of quitting if you're on an e-cigarette, about the reversal back to traditional cigarettes, tightening up on some of the safety concerns. I think all of that work, the kind of quality stuff that's been done in the UK, that needs to continue, and that data needs to be in the hands of regulators. Yeah. I think at the philosophical level, it's probably not more science or research that's going to drive the change. I think it's going to be being willing to actually move out of our traditional cage of tobacco control and engaging with partners who we may have a continued distrust, distaste and dislike of. I'm talking about the tobacco industry, and actually mapping out what is it that we expect of them and what would be signs of progress that we can independently verify, show that they're on a long-term track. Some of those I would be looking for are if between them BAT or Philip Morris or Reynolds or one of the big companies actually spell out the size of their research and development budget as a percentage of revenue and commit to increase this incrementally over the next decade with a focus primarily on producing better and more effective reduced harm products, that would be a great signal of success. If they were to commit to show how their marketing dollars will be put behind new products with the force that they've done on the traditional products and lay out the sums, that would be a huge step forward. And I suspect doing those two things, you'd actually start seeing the transformation in the product, as we've seen when any set of one products gets displaced by others. That requires not trust, but it requires two sides to agree that their long-term goals must be shared in some respect. A tobacco company's long-term goal must be continued profitability. Whether you agree that they want to actually reduce harm is irrelevant. Public health is long-term harm reduction, and they may not be interested in the profitability of the tobacco companies. But they need to recognize that it's that very profitability that is going to determine whether they're going to make the transition successfully to become a scaled producer of healthier, reduced harm products. Killing them off is actually going to be in nobody's favor in the long run. All that will happen is that they will continue to fight, regulations will get stiffer, and will reinforce the current status quo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.